All right. Good evening, NE10. It's fantastic to see so many of you participating in tonight's program. Before I give my welcome and introduce myself, just ask for anybody that has joined tonight's program from a participant standpoint to please turn your video off. That will make it easier for us to manage the question and answer part, and we'll ask you to turn it on when you are, if you have a question to ask in the breakout rooms. So thank you very much. All right, I know that people are still being admitted from the waiting room, but we're gonna go ahead and get started. My name is Julie Rupert. I am the Commissioner of the Northeast 10, and tonight I am thrilled to welcome our distinguished NE10 alumni panelists, well over 650 amazing NE10 student athletes across a wide variety of our NE10 sports. Tonight we come together to not only celebrate all of our student athletes, our institutions, our graduates, but we're also celebrating and commemorating the 50th anniversary of Title IX and National Girls and Women's in Sports Day. It's a party tonight, and we're so glad you can join us. As the first female commissioner in Division II, I take so much pride in the remarkable accomplishments the NE10 has collectively accomplished by women over our 40 plus years. Whether that's been on the field in terms of conference and national championships, All-Americans, all-conference student athletes, in the classroom or in the community, the NE10 has always been a leader in providing opportunities to women, and we have thrived as a conference because of this. And certainly tonight's panelists represent an excellent cross-section of women who have been engaged as student athletes, who have gone on to prosper in careers after graduating. Certainly our female leadership, from women who have served as institutional presidents, to the 12 women that we've had serve as directors of athletics at our member institutions, to the 3,000 female student athletes that annually wear an NE10 uniform. The conference is proud of our collective mission to provide our student athletes with exceptional educational opportunities, high-level competition, and personal growth achieved, I believe, through our institution's collective mission in giving back through contributions to their local communities. Our vision of excellence in the NE10 certainly embraces that distinctive culture of excellence in which student athletes are prepared beyond graduation to serve as engaged citizens and leaders in our global society. And so tonight we build on that culture of excellence. We urge you to listen, learn, and most importantly, engage with these phenomenal women who have given of their time and whose life journeys have taken them from the fields and the courts and the classrooms of the NE10 to positions in professional and college sports. They represent the best of our past, and with their involvement tonight in paying it forward, they'll help us build your futures so that one day some of you will be participating in panels just like this. So we welcome everybody. We're thrilled you're here, and it's my pleasure to introduce Emily Dorco, Associate Director of Athletics at Adelphi University, who will serve as tonight's moderator.
Thank you so much, Julie. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking time on this Thursday evening for a first of its kind and definitely the largest attendance to date for our Northeast 10 Women in Sports panel. Tonight's event was put together by the senior women administrators on all of your campuses and the Northeast 10 Conference office. Like Julie said, my name is Emily Dorco, and I'll be your moderator for tonight's event. I'm a double alum and former softball and volleyball player at Adelphi University, and I'm proud to say I was a freshman the first year that Adelphi joined the Northeast 10 Conference, and I was a member of both the volleyball and softball team's first NE10 titles. I didn't stray too far from my roots, as I currently serve as the Associate AD for External Relations and the Senior Women Administrator for the Panthers. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. This event will be recorded and shared with you at the conclusion of the event. So for now, we just ask that you remain muted with your cameras off until we get to the breakout sessions later in the program. Upon registering, you should have selected a breakout room topic, but we understand that by listening to tonight's conversations and all the incredible people that we have as our panelists, you could possibly change your mind, and that is okay. Throughout the entire program, feel free to drop any questions you might have into the chat feature, which will be monitored by members of the Northeast 10 staff. So without further ado, let us get into it. We are hosting this program one day after National Girls and Women in Sports Day, and within the 50th year of celebrating Title IX. So I'd first like to introduce our keynote speaker, a graduate of Southern Connecticut State University, where she was a 4-sport athlete and played on 6 national championship teams in the sport of softball. From there, she ran the gamut in the sports world. She was a coach and athletics administrator, which included 18 years as the University of Texas at Austin Director of Women's Athletics. She's the former CEO of the Women's Sports Foundation, was named one of the 10 most powerful women in sports by Fox Sports, and is currently the president and founder of Sports Management Resources. Please welcome Donna Lopiano.
I can't hear the applause. This is.
I know.
No. Hi, everyone, and I'm just speaking to Emily's introduction. The first thing that probably crossed your mind was, how did she get 6 years of eligibility and be on 6 national championship teams? And the fact of the matter was, you can tell from my gray hair, that I lived before Title IX, and there weren't many opportunities for girls to play sports, either in high school or college. But if you did, in softball, for instance, which was my sport, at the time, you couldn't play on a college softball team and on an outside softball team. So my choice was I going to play 20 games playing for my college, or 100 games playing for the Ray Bestis Breakettes, which was an outside team. So times were very different then, and that's a good place to start, because it's my my pleasure to kind of lay the groundwork for where we are right now in terms of Title IX. Contrary to popular thought, Title IX was never an athletics law. It was all about your grandmother, or maybe even great-grandmother, who was not allowed to go to graduate school to become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, was not allowed access to the highest paying professions. There were, at the time, quotas on the number of women who were admitted into those graduate programs. And when I say quotas, I mean, unless your father or mother gave the money for the building of the medical school, you didn't get into medical school, or there were quotas on 5 or 10% to at the level of 5 or 10% of admissions. And that was because everyone was very afraid that these degrees would be wasted on women. They would get married, they would have children, they would leave the workforce, and why would they need a degree? But that was the way life was in 1972. And in 1972, because of Title IX, all of the doors to higher education majors were thrown open to women. And we're now enjoying 50% enrollment in law schools and medical schools. But the whole issue of athletics didn't even come up until 1974, 75. And you would have thought that all hell broke loose at the prospect of opening up equal opportunity for women in sport in 1974, 75. When Title IX was announced, the headlines across the country were Title IX and women's athletics would be the death of big-time football. And the media just grabbed onto this. They forgot about the origins of Title IX, and it became known as an athletics law because there was an outright war going on. Congress 4 times considered the bills to eliminate men's football and men's basketball from Title IX compliance, which would have completely gutted the law. And thank goodness that they refused. So in 1975, Title IX went into effect, and it was not a zero-sum game. And I'm going to just share my screen for a little bit to bring you up to date with, let's make sure I've got a little. Second, I'm coming. Okay. Can you guys see that? Yes. Can you see my PowerPoint? Good. All right. So let me just start by saying I'm going to be showing you data from 1819 and maybe a year before that because of the pandemic. We know that all the participation data in 1920 is no longer valid because schools virtually shut down in March because of the pandemic. And then there was a tremendous difference in athlete numbers in 1920-21 because not everybody came back to school. Not all sports were conducted in that second year, really the first full year of the pandemic. So I just wanted to make that note. But here's a picture in terms of, was this a zero-sum game? Did men lose because women got the chance to play sports? And this is a high school picture. And if you look at 1971-72, there were 3.6 million boys in high school sports compared to less than 300,000 girls. If you look at that picture in 1819, the last year of really accurate data, look at men's athletics, boys athletics at the high school level. 4.5 million boys participating in high school sports. Men's sport, boys sport continued to grow. Nobody stopped men's sports from growing to wait for women to catch up. And when you look at the girls' figures today, or 1819, of 3.4 million, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? That today girls aren't receiving the same number of opportunities that boys were afforded in 1972. That girls are still only getting 43% of all participation opportunities, even though they're 50% of all of the enrolled students in high school. And over the last 10 years, more opportunities have been added for boys than girls at the high school level. Same story at the college level. You can see how low the numbers really are in terms of opportunities for girls to play sport. In the mid-1970s was interesting because all of the men were arguing, hey, girls aren't going to be as interested in sports as boys. They're not really going to play. We don't have to give them the same number of opportunities because they simply won't come out for teams. And as you can whereas about 1 out of every 2 boys in high school played college, whereas 1 out of every 2 boys in high school played high school sports, it was one in every 27, 1 out of every 27 girls played high school sports. The funnel going into college got to be very small. So in 1972, you were looking at 170,000 participation opportunities for men compared to less than 30,000 for women. When you count up all of the men and women in NCAA sports today, it's less than 500,000. So there aren't that many opportunities at the college level. In 1819, men had increased from 170,000 opportunities to 279,000. No loss of opportunities for girls. Everybody was saying in the 1970s, hey, it's a zero-sum game. If we gave girls an opportunity to play, that means boys would lose one. That doesn't work in capitalist societies. anything that's good for people grows as population grows. It's never a zero-sum game. But you can see where women increased from 30,000 participants to 220,000 participants. Tremendous growth. This is something that should be celebrated 50 years after Title IX, but it shouldn't be celebrated that we're only at 46% of all athletes, because we're 54% of the undergraduate student body. And that difference is a difference of about 170,000 participation opportunities that women are not getting. I should really make the screen better so that bigger so that you guys can see this. Just trying to get rid of that sidebar, but of course I can't. There we go. Okay, and I apologize. All right, so what's happening now, right? I want everybody to understand that whenever men's sport is being dropped, who gets blamed? You know, women's sports gets blamed, right? And everybody should know that that is not the case. When men's programs are dropped, they are dropped in Division I, not in Division II and III usually. And we know for sure that sports are dropped and added all the time. So it's the net number that you're looking at. And in Division I, you're looking at a loss over this 1988 to 2017-18 period. You're looking at a loss of 329 men's programs over that period of time. We're looking at the increase in Division II and Division III. Overall, men's programs have increased, not decreased. And look at the tremendous growth in women's program at the bottom of the screen. But keep that in mind. This is where the money's going when men's sports programs are dropped. Whenever a men's sport program is dropped, the money is going to men's football and basketball. Men's football and basketball make up in Division I FBS 81% of the total men's athletic budgets, and inordinate percentages of the sum of men's budgets. But everybody should know that. Never feel guilty when a men's sport is dropped. And what's the overall picture in terms of Title IX? And I'm not here to depress you, right? But I'm here to make sure that on this 50th anniversary of Title IX, we know that the work is not yet done in terms of the promise of equal opportunity in sport. 90% of athletic programs in the United States are out of compliance with Title IX. They are not giving female student athletes the percent of participation opportunities to which they are entitled. And what Title IX says is, if women are 56% of the undergraduate student body, then they should be 56% of all athletes on your campus. The result of that not being in compliance is that women are being shortchanged by $1 billion a year in athletic scholarship money. That's a lot of college education. And we know that female athletes are not getting anywhere near the kind of recruiting support as male athletes are getting. Shortfalls about $162 million a year. This is per year. And when you look at participation opportunities, as I mentioned before, we're about 150,000 participation opportunities short of what women are entitled to get. Now, some quick snapshots in terms of the coverage of women's sports. Media has a great deal to do with the value of women's sports. Are there television rights fees out there? Is the public willing to pay good money for a ticket to women's games? It depends on what the media is doing. And when you look at media coverage is still predominantly male sports. 85 to 95% of all sport coverage is men's sports coverage. And that keeps little girls from seeing role models on TV to the same extent as little boys. And you might say, well, why is this happening? And this little chart should probably tell you why. What gets into a newspaper, what gets on television is whatever the sports editor of the newspaper or the vice president of programming of a television station or whoever is running streaming video for ESPN. It's whatever that person decides he wants to see on television. That 10% of all of these positions are held by women. 90% are held by men. And there's something called homologous reproduction. It's kind of a big word for a normally accepted theory of hiring people, that the power structure of any field, whoever is controlling it, has a tendency to hire people who look like them, people that they're comfortable with. And so this continuous rehiring, men rehiring other men into positions of power has really shut down the media in particular in terms of advancing women's sports.
Click on the screen, navigate to the dots, click settings.
Sorry. Okay. So real quick, the college sports leadership picture, also a similar story, right? Almost 80% of all athletic director positions are held by men. 59% of the head coaches of women's teams are men. 94% of the coaches of men's teams, head coaches of men's teams, are men. So you're looking at overall, just overall, all coaches, you're looking at 75 to 80% of all coaches in men's and women's sports are still male. Women have been virtually shut out of the highest paying jobs, which are usually in men's sports. And this goes for other professions too. And the answer is, the reason why I'm showing you this is you want to, all of us, we should aspire to being boss. And we've got to change these percentages. And you change these percentages by applying for jobs and being better than the other candidates. Another quick look, but by race. When you look at women being in jeopardy, you're looking at Black women and Black men and women being in jeopardy too, women being in double jeopardy. That sport is still predominantly white in our institutions, except for the revenue sports, where we are commonly exploiting predominantly minority athletes in order to make big money. But most of the sports in the NCAA are still predominantly white in terms of when you look at them compared to the number of minorities or the percentage of minorities in the on the basis of a census, for instance. Blacks are underrepresented in 14 of 19 men's sports on the men's side, and they're underrepresented in 21 of 25 women's NCAA championship sports. We have a lot of work to do in terms of increasing opportunities for minority athletes. And this is the leadership picture for minority men, minority women. You're looking at not so good stats. 85% of all of these positions are held by white or non-Hispanic men or women. And these are just important stats, because when you get to be boss, it's going to be you who are going to be the people who change this picture, who make it look more like what our American society looks at. So what do you have to look forward to in terms of the big challenges? You already know we've still got a Title IX compliance challenge. I challenge every one of you to figure out whether your institutions are in compliance with Title IX. And I'll bet you that 8 or 9 of the Northeast 10, schools are not. There's a huge brouhaha growing amid the chaos of NILs right now. As you know, the NCA is pretty much frozen in terms of enforcing outside employment rules related to whether boosters are being are allowed to induce prospects to come to their institutions by dangling NIL money. And the Office of Civil Rights is looking at that right now. But what this means for everybody in women's sports is we have to start insisting that our schools fulfill the promise of Title IX inside athletic programs by giving women equal promotion and equal publicity. That has not been done for 50 years. As a result, women and men who have only been in the NIL market for the last year and a half, they don't have the brand that men have because their sports have not been promoted to the same extent. And we have to make a difference in that regard. It'll be the subject of lawsuits next as women realize that their value has been diminished because schools are not fulfilling their Title IX compliance opportunities. We are still going to be challenged with costs. That the expense of intercollegiate athletics is humongous. There are only 24 out of 2,000 institutions that conduct athletic programs at either the 2-year or 4-year college level. Only 24 make more money than they spend. The rest of the schools are heavily subsidized by institutional general funds, and that means the tuition money of non-athlete students is being funneled into athletic programs, and many schools have pretty high mandatory activity fees, a large part of which are used to fund athletic programs. Those things are going to tighten up because one of the things we're seeing over the next 5 or 10 years is a real decline in enrollment. And as enrollment declines, nobody's going to increase tuition and nobody's going to increase student fees. Those are traditional sources of funding for athletics. We know that the Congress is really very ticked off at the NCA right now. They are very upset because here's a number for you. In Division I, $15.8 billion a year is generated. Only 18% of that money is spent on scholarships, and only 1% of that money is spent on medical athletic injuries. There is no parachute for football players or women's basketball players or soccer players. There are many sports for which concussion is a risk. But when dementia hits 10 to 20 years from now, there's no parachute there to help families with children who have grown up and now are suffering from Parkinson's or from ALS or any of the other debilitating diseases that are the long-term effect of brain trauma. So we've got to do better in terms of putting a medical trust in place. The big elephant in the middle of the room are despicable graduation rates of predominantly minority athletes who have been specially admitted because of their athletic talent. And schools are not remediating these athletes. They're just using many of these athletes for their athletic skill and not fulfilling the promise of a graduation with a meaningful degree. That's going to be a big issue in the next couple of years. And as I said before, nothing probably is going to hit us harder than declining enrollments from a financial standpoint. And we're probably still a year or two off from seeing what that looks like. But Emily, that's the lay of the land. That being said, there's no question in my mind that opportunities have never been greater for women in sport. It's just that you have to go into the profession knowing that you have an advocacy role to play, an advocacy responsibility that a lot of people follow, that you are following in the footsteps of, have done their part. It's your turn.
Right. And I think it's so important, especially for all 623 participants on this call today, empowering others and advocating for the people around us, especially women, is so important now more than ever, especially if you're looking to move into a role that's in the sports industry, right? We can't lift each other. We rise by lifting others, right? So why don't you lift your best girlfriend right along with you on this journey, whatever it might be. Donna, that was an incredible amount of information, and thank you for obviously whipping it at us at a rapid pace. But I think it's just so eye-opening to see, right? It's a catch-22. We've come so far, but we still have so far to go, right? And for that, if you could in one or two sentences, what are like the priorities as we look to the so far to go? What are the top things we have to be prepared
Well,
for?
I think the big question is whether we could fix this tomorrow. If the NCAA would have as a condition of membership that you can't be a member, you can't access national championships unless you're in compliance with Title IX. It'd be pretty easy for the NCAA to say every 3 years, your conference has to come in and do an assessment and see whether you're in compliance. The Northeast 10 can do that tomorrow if it wanted to make that a condition of membership. But it is worried about its competitiveness vis-a-vis the other 90% of the institutions who are not in compliance.
Right.
So the onus is on leadership. And I put athletic directors and presidents at fault in this one, but that's how to do it, because the Office of Civil Rights does not have the staff to enforce Title IX. Either it's important to athletics or not.
Right.
Right now, it's all lip service on the part of the NCAA.
So I have one last question before we open up to the rest of our panelists. But in reading your bio and looking at all of the places you've been and where you started to where you finished or where you currently are, is there any place that just really you said, wow, my time was well spent here and I would do it all over again in a heartbeat?
Oh, every place. I think you're going to find this, that every place that you spend time at, you make a difference. And all of a sudden you've done that, and it's time to do the next thing that you've never done before. Right. And that's the exciting part of work. 50 years of one adventure after another, and I've had the privilege of having 3 or 4 pretty big adventures.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Donna, thank you so much. Again, a wealth of information in a very short amount of time. I think we could have done a full 90 minutes just with you, but we want to definitely kick it over to the rest of our panelists, which I'm going to introduce here momentarily. I just want to remind every one of our participants on the call that if you do have any questions throughout, that the chat feature is open and being monitored by our NE10 staff this evening. So again, without further ado, let's dive into some of these former student athletes of your institutions. I'm going to introduce each of our 6 panelists, and then we're going to go over some questions before we get to our breakout sessions. So I'd first like to introduce Coach Kristen Hutchison from AIC.
Whoop, whoop. Hello. My name is Kristen Hutchison. I'm the head women's basketball coach at AIC. I played women's soccer and basketball at AIC for 4 years, and then I also played softball for 2 years also. I was the assistant coach for 4 years at my alma mater, and then I became the head coach after that, and I've been there ever since. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to be here. We're happy to have you here tonight, so thank you for joining us. Our next panelist is Kelly Mannix from Adelphi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Mannix. I played basketball at Adelphi. I'm currently the Associate Athletic Director for Business at Johns Hopkins, and my professional career actually began at Adelphi. After I completed my undergrad, I stayed and worked as a grad assistant in the business office, which led me to my first job in college athletics at Amherst College, where I was at for 6 years as the assistant athletic director. And now I recently just took this position at Hopkins earlier this fall. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Kelly. Our next panelist and alum is Barbara McHugh from Lemoyne.
Thanks, Emily. And by the way, Kristen, we definitely played against each other. So with that in mind, Barbara McHugh, Lemoyne College, class of 01. I played my freshman and sophomore year. I played women's basketball, and my final 2 years cross country. I'll keep my journey a little bit abbreviated here just for the sake of time, but essentially going into my senior year at Lemoyne, I interned with the New York Mets, which then led to a full-time opportunity working in the marketing department of the Mets. And I spent 6.5 years there, part of 8 seasons, as we would say, in when we live our schedules by a season. And then I took a leap of faith, went to a startup called the Sports Museum of America. Many of you probably don't recall this, but it was one of the 12 Liberty Bond projects to help revitalize Lower Manhattan after 9/11. It was actually the home of the Heisman Trophy after 9/11, with the downtown athletic area just getting shut down with 9/11. But needless to say, short stint there because unfortunately the recession of 08 and 09 happened, but fortunately and super grateful for the opportunity, I was able to come back into baseball, and I've been with Major League Baseball ever since for the last 14 years, and currently serve as Senior Vice President of Audience Development and Marketing Operations, which mainly consists of overseeing 4 main groups, which is digital marketing and media, our club marketing function, player marketing, and marketing operations.
So all of our business school attendees and marketing majors, communications, make sure you're listening to what Barbara has to say. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. Our next alum is Ali Palma from Franklin Pierce.
Hi, everyone. Excited to be here with you all, and thanks for having me. I played basketball at Franklin Pierce University for 4 years. And right out of college, I actually went and worked for a small nonprofit that did helped underprivileged kids, but also offered basketball programs. And while I did that, I also coached high school sports and worked at a sports complex. So it was a whole little mishmash in the beginning. But from there, after won a state championship in Connecticut, which was awesome, I left and went to work with the American Junior Golf Association and their communications department for about a year. And then after leaving there, I went and worked with the LPGA Tour, the Women's Golf Tour, for 2 years. And now I've been in DC for a little over a year now with the Washington Mystics of the WNBA, as well as the NBA G League's Capital City Go-Go as a digital producer and editor.
Awesome. In this world of content creation, I'm sure you are extra busy all the time. Thank you for joining us. Our next alum is Cassandra Thorpe from St. Anselm.
Hello, Emily. Good evening, everyone. Shout out to all my Hawks on the call. As she said, my name is Cassandra Thorpe. I played women's basketball at St. Anselm College from 04 to 08. And so started my college career there, then continued to move west. So got my master's at Springfield College. Then I worked at Xavier University, University of Cincinnati, Kent State in Ohio, and now I'm currently at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I work with student athletes as they prepare for life after graduation. So from resumes to job placement. So that's been a really great opportunity that sport has provided me.
I love that, and so important right now as we get our student athletes ready for life beyond college, right? So you're here for 4 years, you're making the most of it, but then we do have to be prepared to make that next step, right? Graduation is key and one of the priorities. So thank you for being with us, Cassandra. And then our final panelist this evening is Sierra Whitlock from New Haven.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Emily. My name is Sierra Whitlock. I played softball at the University of New Haven for 4 years. I'm a recent grad. I did a graduate assistantship for 2 years at Virginia Commonwealth University, where I worked in facilities and events. Unfortunately, when COVID hit, it an interesting experience going through school at that time, but gave me some really great athletics experience that I wouldn't have necessarily gotten. And so after I graduated from VCU, then I accepted my first full-time role, which is where I'm still at America East Conference, which feels like the Division I version of the NE10. It's a lot of parallels there. So I've really been enjoying it. I've been there for about 1.5 years, and I work in championships and student athlete engagement.
Awesome, Sierra. Thank you so much. So right now we're going to go through just a real quick gamut of questions for all of you. I'm going to start with you, Barbara. Could you share with us a little bit of reflection on how Title IX impacted you as a student athlete or in your role now?
Sure. I think when I think of Title IX, really the one word that comes to mind to me is opportunities. I mean, certainly as Donna mentioned, I mean, there's a long way we have to go, but I think we all probably have our own, different experience and whatnot. But I think for me personally, I really just, when I reflect on it, it really is about opportunities. So when I think about it during my time at Lemoyne College, Title IX, and everyone that was before me really just afforded me the opportunity on campus to do countless things. And I actually made my pivot from basketball to cross country, partly because I still wanted to be a student athlete, but I really actually wanted to spend more time working games and being in the athletic department than candidly on the bench. I was a walk-on. But it really why I just, again, summarize it as opportunities and, a constant as a student athlete, professional in my career, as well as just in my personal life. I've just have found it important to be surrounded by individuals who help push me, inspire me, people that, give me the confidence that I can do, what maybe at the moment I might not think is possible. And I think all those opportunities combined really just summarizes it for me. And I think our job now is to just continue to help pay it forward. So all you student athletes on the line now, it's our job to help you, but soon enough, we're going to be looking at you to help those that are going to be following in your footsteps.
Right, the constant networking role that we all play. My hope in the future is this event is in person and we can all interact with each other, and that's the purpose of our breakout rooms. But being able to offer insight and provide support and share with each other is definitely so important when it comes to opportunities. Sierra, do you want to talk a little bit about how Title IX impacted you?
Yeah, it's been kind of interesting over the last year to hear all these women and how it's affected them, and especially hearing people who lived through that experience. And so for me, like I just grew up with that girls played sports, and it's never been a question for me. And so you can kind of lose sight of it. But I played for a coach in high school who, whenever she felt like we didn't have enough energy, or we were kind of slacking at practice, or we were taking our opportunities for granted, then she would stop us and say, I didn't have these opportunities. I played baseball with the boys. I didn't get to play softball when I was growing up. And so whenever I could feel it in college and I just wasn't super into practice that day, or feeling kind of lazy, like I can hear Susie in the back of my head, like I did not have these opportunities. And so it's something that's kind of stuck with me throughout my experience, even though I didn't necessarily live through it.
That's amazing and a really good point, right? To think about, this is all we've known, some of us in the post-Title IX era. For it to not even be an opportunity is like, well, what do you mean? So again, when I was reading through Donna's bio and she was on 6 national championship teams, I was like, I would have loved to be on 6 national championship teams. But again, I am fortunate and privileged to have even had the opportunity to play sports in college. So definitely incredible and something to always remember. So we're going to transition a little bit. We're going to talk about the life after being a student athlete, and we're going to talk about some transferable skills. So Coach, I'm going to start with you. What are some transferable skills that you learned as a student athlete and are now applying in your career today?
Well, I think everyone here that is on a team is held accountable by their coach. Early morning practices, time management, knowing when we have a test due, when we have to study because we have a road game. So I think all the skills you're getting, being part of a team, having to rely on your teammates. And we talk a lot with my players about, you know, two things you can control: your effort and your attitude, and bringing those every day. And that can translate to any profession. You know, you work hard, you want something, you work hard for it, and you see the results. And, you know, we want all our student athletes to progress from freshman year to sophomore year and so forth. And just working hard every day and knowing that you can do it just puts you in a great predicament for your career, no matter what it is.
Right. And speaking of being on a team, if everyone has that same mindset, it should just be everyone, right? Everyone's moving with the same goal. Everyone's moving towards the same thing, right? So that's a really good point. Cassandra, do you have any thoughts on transferable skills?
Yes, some additional skills that, from my experience, definitely include conflict resolution. You know, you've got a lot of competitive people fighting for minutes, the ball against somebody else. So being able to effectively communicate those needs, because think about it, in a world that's, you know, not everybody that works in sports did sports. So not everyone understands kind of how to create those communities and how to have open conversations and be kind of vulnerable about what it is that you're kind of going through and getting towards the goal. I think as athletes, we thrive on goal setting, feedback. How can we get better? And those are things that apply to what you want to do in your profession. So you're always looking for what can be next, what's the next avenue, what's the new drill, where's the transition of recruiting going? Like, you're always looking for what's next. And another big piece that I've noticed is building community. When you walk onto a team, I'll speak for basketball, you have 12 friends immediately. And so when you go into the workplace, that's not always the case. But because you've had these skills to meet people from different backgrounds, different cities, different experiences, you know how to communicate and find camaraderie. If it is just work, or if it is sport, or if it is your favorite European soccer team, whatever it is that you, or, you know, Real Housewives, whichever series that you're really into, you're able to build that community. And those are the things that have carried me throughout my career and have really helped me when I build new relationships at each institution. And those carry on as I've transitioned throughout my career as well.
And that's going to segue right into my next question. I'm going to stick with you, Cassandra. You talk about conflict resolution and creating that environment. Obviously, looking at the numbers that Donna explained to us, seeing how much of a male-dominated industry sports in general are, from the student athletes on our campuses to the administration that are serving our different institutions. Can you speak a little bit to how it is to be a female and a female on administration in what's likely your department is looking like a male-dominated area?
Yes. It's always a comparison. You're always looking at your male colleagues in comparison, thinking, are they doing this job better? You can decipher what it is in your specific areas within that. But as I look in my own area, the challenge is always having to show all of the things. As women, we don't typically brag on ourselves. So the student athletes that I work with, it's really hard to do resumes because it's essentially bragging about yourself on paper, where we are more conditioned to, you know, it's a team, it's we, it's us. So being able to break out of that mold of, well, I did this, I was able to step out, I led this, I, you know, facilitated, developed, organized. So we need to do a better job of telling our story in the male-dominated space, kind of as Donna was sharing with the male sports information directors, they're telling the male story because that is something that they're more naturally inclined to do. So we need to be more be better advocates in telling our own story and the things that we are doing and accomplishing. And this is a great way to continue that conversation of us all sharing our stories and doing that.
I wrote a little note to myself: attempt to add position like Cassandra's at Adelphi, because it sounds like the work that you're doing with your student athletes is light years ahead of kind of what we've got going on, and being able to provide that support and empower and say, no, you did this, so you should be proud of it. Like that's really incredible. So thank you for sharing that. Kelly, do you want to talk a little bit about your environment and where you currently are?
Yeah, I just want to echo everything Cassandra said. You know, being the only or one of the only females in a male dominated field is a real thing. Specifically for me being in the business world, you know, business and finance, you don't see too many females. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, it has its challenges. And I feel like I have to be on my game. But I don't look to that as a threat, or, you know, I've walked into countless rooms or meetings where I've looked around and I've been the only female. But instead of getting intimidated by that, I've let it fuel me as a motivation for opportunity, right? To Cassandra's point, like when I crush it, I feel like a badass and it's cool. You know, I think back a lot and parallel my experience with being a student athlete. And that might mean, you know, being the last one in the office or asking a lot of questions, studying, preparing. But it's so when you get in those moments when you're in the minority, you can just steal the spotlight. And it is really rewarding.
Absolutely, Cal. I love all of what you just said. That's amazing. So we're gonna transition a little bit to some more fun questions. Allie, what is, and you have a fun job, right? You get to create content. You're in the digital space. What's your favorite part about working in sports?
It's such a tough question because, like you said, I do consider myself very lucky. I do a very fun job.
No, I'm not saying it's not stressful, but it definitely seems fun.
Definitely stressful, but definitely equally fun. No, but I think definitely kind of on the women's side of sports, I've been really fortunate to be with the LPGA and now the W side. And what's been fun is to really connect with our players and create a space where they feel comfortable sharing their stories of who they are off the court and finding unique ways to make them want to share their stories, to be excited about the content, to be excited to have the camera in their face, right? Just really finding new ways for new fans to relate, connect on a human level and on a fun level with women's sports. So it's been really fun for me, whether it's like sneakerheads, I don't even know, all the fashion stuff that's going on. Our players have dogs, our players have kids. So that's really my favorite side of digital, whereas I have to cover the basketball, all the action. I get it. That's fun too. But really connecting on a human level and displaying that has been my favorite part of my job so far.
That's awesome. Barbara, I'm sure your day looks a little bit different in that you probably don't have Major League Baseball players walking by your office every day, or you're not shoving a camera in their face. But what is your favorite part about working for Major League Baseball?
Well, every now and then that does happen, every now and then, but as Allie was saying, I mean, it's really hard to pick a favorite thing or moment because we're surrounded by kind of greatness all the time, and we picked or chosen careers that we're inspired by and that we love. So I guess I'll just start there. I do genuinely love the game. I love going to work every day, but equally, I love the challenges that kind of come across my desk every day. It keeps me going, keeps me motivated. I love the people that I get to work with every day. And when I say people, that's such a broad spectrum of people. It could be my colleagues, it could be the team that I'm leading, it could be our 30 clubs, countless partners, and certainly our athletes. So it's a wide spectrum of, you know, who I'm interacting with on a day-to-day. And then I guess just to close it out, I would say I love contributing, you know, whether it's, you know, a tiny little contribution or maybe on some occasions a bit larger, just to experiences of lifelong memories that fans make when they go to a baseball game or they interact with our game. And that usually is across families, friends, or other communal groups, but typically very generational. I think most of us can hopefully recall a memory of when you went to your first, you know, baseball game. And usually that ties back to a family member. So I think it's just about, you know, creating memories for people and around things that they love, particularly around their families.
Sure. And I can think of times when my family came to watch me play, and they didn't necessarily always come to a weeknight volleyball game, but they were at every softball doubleheader, wherever it was across the Eastern Seaboard. So that really resonates, I think, and should resonate with this audience. Sierra, so at the conference level, what is your favorite part about working in sport?
So I work in championships, and as an athlete, obviously that's what we're all working towards, is winning championships. And unfortunately, my team never made it that far. Emily, I do have a little bit of resentment for you, Adelphi softball there, but I think just being at championships, and it comes through seasonally, being a part of athletes' greatest memories, like being a part of those moments is huge. And unfortunately at the conference, then to me, it doesn't matter who wins. I win every time. I get to be a part of the excitement, and I get that game day jitters and excitement, and that's really fun. And then also on the student athlete side, just being a part of planning like education and programming that we build out. We do a lot in the DEI space and mental health, and just seeing our student athletes be passionate about those things and having those rewarding experiences has been really cool to be a part of.
And I just think we have swim championships for the NE10 coming up next week. And then the following week we have track championships, and just the energy, like I can't wait to go to them, because I'm excited to just be in that atmosphere. Because sometimes you wait a whole season, right, just to get to championships, and it's like, okay, I need that little push to get me through the rest of the season. So thank you for sharing. That's really great. So in an effort to maximize our time in the breakout rooms, we're going to begin that process now. There's going to be a screen that pops up. Our audience members, I would encourage you to turn on your video at this time as you go into the breakout rooms. Our panelists want to see you, especially if you're from their institution. Hopefully you're repping a logo. This is your time. The next 15 minutes are an opportunity for you to pick their brains, ask them questions, maybe dive a little bit more into their transition from sport, being a student athlete, to the different roles that they've played. Once you get into breakout rooms, if you're in a room with a panelist from your institution, you'll also notice that your SWA is in the room. So say hello, really get the conversation going. And we're going to be in those for about 15 minutes, and then we'll come back. We'll reconvene for one final question to each one of our panelists. And then we'll wrap it up and we'll say goodnight. But before we do that, let's hit those breakout rooms. It'll be about 15 minutes. You should see at the bottom of your screen, join a breakout room. So feel free to go ahead and click. It looks like just about everyone is back from your breakout rooms. I know that was a very short amount of time. And again, I think we could have this panel itself run on for multiple hours. At this rate, I think the conversation in our room was going awesome. One of the questions that got brought up had to basically do with networking, and someone said, well, can I get your email at the end of this? And we want to let you all know, all of the audience and everyone on the panel, aware follow-up to this when we share the recording. If our panelists are okay, we'd love to share their LinkedIn's and the best contact information for them. So you will all be getting that in your inboxes. I don't want to say tomorrow, but in the near future. So I hope you found those breakout rooms beneficial. We are going to pose one final question to each one of our panelists, and we're going to start with Coach Hutchison. Well, I guess it's twofold. So it was a question I didn't get to ask before because I didn't want to prolong, but so it's two questions. In what ways can we support other women working in sports? And one final piece of advice as we end our panel here tonight.
Just always help somebody, help other females, talk to them, tell them what works, what doesn't, just build relationships. I know that I have a great relationship with all my female coworkers that are other coaches. I go into their office, I ask, what would you do in this situation? What would you do in that situation? And just keep supporting each other, encourage each other, and support each other. And that's gonna go a long way. And what was the second question?
I guess it's the same question, right? In what ways can we support and what's your piece of advice? So I think that kind of answered both of them.
Oh, okay.
But I think in the same regard too, on the receiving end of getting that advice, be open-minded. You're not always going to like the feedback that you're hearing, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't at least listen to it, understand it, maybe understand where they're coming from, ask a follow-up question, kind of dive a little bit more into why they're saying the things that they might be saying, right? But yeah, I think that's a really great first.
And my final piece of advice, like, do something you love. Like, when you do something you love, it's not work. So do what you're passionate about.
So great. And if you don't know what it is yet, that's okay.
Mm.
All right, Kelly.
Something that my coach used to always say that has stuck with me, this piggybacks off Kristen, is bring someone with you, your teammate, a family member, your best friend, whoever, level up together. I think that's how, especially important for us women, and that's how we can advance. And a piece of advice I would say is to ask questions, ask the why, because a lot of times you might hear an answer of, oh, well, that's just always how we've done it. Well, that might not be the most efficient or the best way. So don't be afraid to ask questions, and not in a nagging or a disrespectful way, but because you're trying to learn and you're open and you want to hear historical context and background to be able to then say, well, that might not work in this day and age, and here's what I think of a way we can do this better. So just stay curious and hungry to learn, and ask a lot of questions.
Right, because there's always something to learn. I learn stuff every day, whether it's about a coach, student athlete, a different department on campus. I'm like, wow, the things I could do if I knew that a little bit sooner. All right, Barbara, any last words?
Yeah, I don't want to repeat anything because those responses were spot on. I guess for the advice, I would say try to really understand your strengths and capitalize on them, because at the end of the day, they're your own superpowers and we're all unique. So, take advantage of your individual superpowers and really rally behind them. And then on the other piece, I would say, particularly when somebody new comes along. So it could be you're at a job and there's a new female colleague, like, really just try to help mentor them or just bring them along, show them, grab a coffee, like, just engage with them. Because everyone, as they start something new, it can be, intimidating and everything like that. So just try to bring along a new female colleague with you, in whatever you might be doing.
So great. I hope everyone is taking notes. This is being recorded, so you will be able to transcribe later, but definitely all great pieces of advice. Allie, what do you think?
So my first kind of just piece of advice for everyone is to stay genuine, and just be true to yourself. I think it's really underrated of just being your own self, following your gut, following your heart and your path. If you like someone, sorry, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Kristen. Do what you're passionate about. Sometimes you might not know what your passion is going to lead you to, but it will fully find you and you will be okay. So just stay true to yourself, stay true to who you are and what you want to do. And you're going to enjoy wherever that takes you. As for lifting each other up, I said it in our breakout room, just cheer everyone on. I mean, I said my space is in the digital space. Follow people on social media, send the likes, send the love. It takes a second. It really does. And you can make someone's day, even if you do or don't know them. Send the love. And it will be reciprocated, I'm sure.
So great. I know don't worry, I'm gonna give the Mystics a little follow after this. Cassandra.
My point of advice, or my piece of advice, will be, you deserve to be here. You have done the work, you've studied, you've had the conversations either with your coaches, with your professors, or with your employer, whatever happens next. You deserve to be there and stand tall in that. Sit straight up, and owning that, your greatness. And then as far as encouragement, I think we can celebrate the mess out of everyone. And I think we need to continue to do that in everything. Oh, you just baked your first cake. That's awesome. To like, first kid, new job, new car. I think the more that we can continue to just love on each other and give each other their flowers, it continues to create that community that we all seek and that we all strive to be a part of. So those are my two.
So important. Build each other up. That's what we're all in this together. We're here together.
Emily, I will say I really like what you said earlier about like a rising tide raises all boats. And I think that's important for us to always remember that it's like, because I'm cheering you on, Emily, doesn't mean I'm not cheering on Allie or that she's not going to be successful. Like we all will, as we lift, as we rise. And I think that's always a great takeaway as we interact and continue into this work of athletics.
Absolutely. Okay, Sierra, what do you think?
A lot of really great points. I think just to try and say something different, I think in terms of supporting other women, just pay attention to what's going on around you. It can be easy in a meeting setting where there's a lot of people for maybe someone to get spoken over. And so maybe take your opportunity to say like, hey, Allie, like I think you were going to say something, and just give someone that space to be able to speak up if maybe you're more comfortable than they are in a situation. And then my piece of advice would be to just say yes to as many opportunities as you can. It might not be something that you enjoy in the moment. You might find out that actually I don't want to be a coach or whatever it might be, but you never know who you're going to meet in this scenario. And even a quote unquote negative experience is going to teach you something.
I love that, doing minimal outreach just to give someone else the opportunity, right? You don't know what battles people are facing. Maybe they have crazy stage fright. Maybe they're super introverted. Maybe speaking in a group setting is something they'd never do, but kind of reaching out that olive branch, right? And saying, oh, but we talked about this earlier. Do you want to elaborate kind of on what we were discussing, right? So that's super great, Sierra. Thank you. And Donna, take us home. You were in our breakout session and I wrote down probably 4 different things that you said in the one question that you answered. So I'm sure you've got something great for this group.
No, two things. Sarah said something about always saying yes. I can honestly say this. My entire life, I've never said no if anybody has asked me to do anything. Never. No matter what my time constraints were like. It is so rewarding to be able to do something for someone else. And the second thing is, remember that the gift that you got from sport is resilience. You didn't win every time. You didn't lose every time. And the biggest lesson is you lose, you step back, you reassess, you figure out, why did I lose? You figure out how to go after it again and win. If you do that all your life, there's no stopping you.
Oh, and then I just think that wraps it up. What more can we say? Ladies, thank you so much. I hope that our audience got as much out of this as I got out of this. I really enjoyed hearing each of your perspectives and each of your unique experiences throughout your being a student athlete and then to where you are now. So again, I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. To our audience, I hope you got something out of it. I hope you took some notes, or if you didn't write them down, hopefully you texted them to someone that was in class. Hey, you're missing out. Like so-and-so said this. Again, this event has been recorded and will be shared with you. And we're going to follow up with LinkedIn profiles. So everyone get ready to accept some connections on LinkedIn. We'll follow up with contact information and the best contact information if it's available. And once again, we want to thank you for joining us as we just look to rise. Let's power up, and hopefully that this gets you through the rest of the semester. I know it's only February. You're like, it just turned February, but got a long road ahead of us. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next time.